In 2005, I was a single 20-something lady about town with a good job and an unachievable goal of gaining my parents' approval. Short of a mail-order husband, I figured the next best chance to win brownie points was to commit the next 30 years of my life to a 600-square-foot condo conversion. In my whimsical fantasies, I pictured myself living there for 3 years, meeting the man of my dreams, and then selling the unit for a modest profit and purchasing a vintage coach house in Ravenswood. My vision board took a detour when just a few weeks in, I discovered that the developer had cut corners during the building conversion. The full scope of incompetence came to light when a city inspector found 106 code violations in the building. As it is easier to find a parking spot in Lakeview after a snowstorm than get a condo developer to own up to his mistakes, each owner had to pay a special assessment to put on a new roof, tear down the brand new, shoddily constructed porches and rebuild them, and a bunch of other punch list items. Once the work was completed, I put the experience and the huge check behind me and went back to waiting for my dream life to come to fruition. It started with such an innocent sound. I almost didn't get up and investigate because it was so faint. After the third or fourth time I heard it, though, I followed the noise to the bathroom. I realized the noise was a sploosh coming from my toilet. Water was shooting up like a darling little bidet every few hours or so. Cool, my naive, teensy brain thought. I look back to that day and see that the sploosh was part of the bad luck train I have found myself on over the years. Some people uncover the edge of a plastic bag in the attic of their recently purchased house that turns out to be early shares of Caterpillar stock. I find a petrified foot. Some people uncover thought to be lost forever Rembrandts in their basements. I discover a handmade Smurf village with a glitter decoupage backdrop. All right, the first discovery didn't really happen. The Smurf village did. Here's an excerpt from the first email I sent the condo board and the original building manager on Wednesday, January 1st, 2008. Hey all, I've been having problems with my toilet, so I had a plumber come in. He fixed the majority of my problems. How I had so many on a pretty new toilet is beyond me. Charged me an arm and a leg and told me that one of the problems is building, not unit, related. What is happening every day when Keisha flushes her toilet above me, a geyser shoots up from mine. That's right, a geyser. Think Old Faithful. Water shoots straight up and soaks everything in the vicinity of my toilet. My plumber said there might be a clogged main pipe somewhere. There are a couple of key details in this email. My plumber said there might be a clogged main pipe somewhere. In the 2.5 years I had owned the condo, I already had a bunch of plumbing-related problems. And it's 2008. As in the year of the housing market collapse. As in starting this year, I couldn't sell this thing even if it had a gold-plated toilet. As it was, they decided the best course of action was to rod the main line, which worked great for a few months. This became the pattern. I would craft emails to the board and building manager with clever titles like Toilet Fountain the Sequel, Toilet Sploosh, and Flooding, ... again. The tone of my emails over the years shifted from friendly and joking to professional to terse and mildly threatening. This was my main topic of communication with the board and the rotating cast of property managers for the 6 years I lived in the unit, and has been for the 8 years I've been renting it out. With each of the 4 tenants I've had, I stopped in the bathroom during my "you've signed the lease, there's no turning back now" tour. And I would tell them to email me with the first sign of sploosh. Unrelated, but such a great tangent, is tenant number 2, who we ended up having a friendly eviction with. I call it a friendly eviction because after several skirmishes between her and her upstairs neighbors, I finally talked into her leaving on her own terms. The skirmishes involved her being convinced that the neighbors were bullying her by walking and running around their place at odd hours. Being that the building was built in the 1920s and had the original hardwood floors, the upstairs neighbors could have been lifting one butt cheek off the couch to fart, and it would likely have caused the floor to creak. My tenant reacted to those noises by alternately emailing me at 2 a.m. and pounding on her ceiling with a broom handle. She was a 70s sitcom character, apparently. She also complained that the son, who she pointed out was not on the lease, made a lot of noise and didn't pay rent. He was 6 years old. She also told me, very nonchalantly once, that she had found a mouse in the kitchen a few weeks prior and had taken care of it. Vermin? No biggie. A 6-year-old boy sliding matchbox cars on his living room floor? Charles Manson's love child. After nearly 10 years of geysers and other random flooding, the board finally decided to look into the larger plumbing issue. Apparently, once the problems moved past the cheap seats of the 2 garden units, the right people started complaining. Turns out, the entire main line from the building to the street, about 250 feet of pipe, was in varying stages of decay, and raw sewage had been oozing out underneath our courtyard for years. Emails were sent out to the owners assuring us that the management company was on top of things and the problem would be resolved quickly. So you can imagine my reaction a few months later when my current tenant, who also happens to be one of my best friends, was a bridesmaid in my wedding, who moved into my condo because her own condo burnt down, called me crying because her storage unit was filled with raw sewage. Items that had nearly been destroyed in her fire were now covered with my building's collective poop. I drove in a blind rage up to Edgewater to help her clear out the storage unit, stopping at a hardware store on my way to buy some cleaning supplies. This is probably where I hit my nadir, sitting in my car in the parking lot of the Crafty Beaver on Lawrence, screaming at my building's property manager over the phone. Another special assessment later, a few weeks of torn-up courtyard and Ridge Avenue, and the problem is fixed. Any splooshing, Catherine? On my smugger days, I craft an email in my head to the original board and property manager about the amount of money we would have saved if they had just listened to me back in 2008. But I'm not one to hold grudges. Besides, in writing this story, I realized that while some of the details were off, my whimsical fantasy did come true. I did meet the man of my dreams. I got engaged inside the dumb condo and mugged outside of it. And we did purchase a house in the suburbs. Our converted attic bedroom has no heat. And that smart village in the basement is pretty weird. But if you squint your eyes, my fantasy was spot on. Oh, and if anyone wants to buy a 1-bedroom, 1-bath garden condo in Edgewater with 1 legal closet and no parking, come see me by the bar. Thank you!
Thank you.